Welcome, evolutionaries, to episode 22. We're going to be talking to Jason Sansregret of P90 Energy, and he's been doing a lot of work with our Indigenous communities for the new funding with the federal government, which is just awesome. I just want to take a second to talk about AIET, which is our sponsor, and I know that they've got some free webinars coming out shortly, so you might want to check them out. Please take a look at the description below for AIT, and they are doing renewable energy training just for you. Jason, welcome to the show. How are
Hello.
you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Maureen?
Excellent. I'm so excited to talk to you. We've been trying to set this thing up for weeks now.
Quite some time, yeah.
You
Yeah.
are such a busy guy, and you've been on the road a lot doing, presentations and estimates and
Yeah.
checking out communities. You want to tell me a little bit first about yourself and your background?
Sure. So I live in Alberta. I was a farmer rancher for a lot of years, in the oil field since I was 16, I guess.
Wow.
Uh,
Started early.
yeah, I started early. I started as a slasher, cutting bush. And that's always been, you kind of need an extra job to keep the farm.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
but my family and I, we moved to Red Deer here recently. We're a hockey family, so you go where the hockey is.
Ooh. How
And
Canadian of you.
exactly, exactly. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. About 15 years ago, I guess, I got involved with Children and Family Services in Alberta. I
Wow.
became an Indigenous board member for them. And after 7 years, I finished as the Indigenous co-chair for the entire Region 4 area. So I got quite a uh, firsthand look, I guess, at government programs, how they failed, how they succeeded. Got contacts with a lot of First Nations bands and Métis settlements, and yeah, so it just seemed a natural fit to move into green energy and take that experience.
Now, for you, green energy, what does it mean for you and what you can provide to Indigenous communities and communities abroad as well? I mean, I know you're servicing other communities too, but let's focus on what does it mean to you?
Well, another thing I've been doing for over 10 years is I do Indigenous awareness workshops all across Western Canada.
Mm.
And in my workshops, I always stress that for any nation, it's about community capacity. So if we can help provide that community capacity through any kind of green initiative or green program, it just makes sense. It makes sense for the environment. It makes sense for the nation. It gives them that sustainability and investment that they can decide to do with whatever they choose to do. So in the last few years, there's been over, probably 200 Indigenous communities involved with solar green energy products, from geothermal to wind turbine, that have all been above the 1 megawatt capacity. And that's not including the ones that are underneath. So it makes it, I don't want to say a market. It's a wonderful opportunity to give to all of them. And with P90, we have that program where we'd like to partner, and that's a very important word. We have to be able to partner, and
Yes.
there's been so many companies, I guess, where their intent was not to invest. Their intent was to take and to run
Yes.
and
Yes.
leave it for somebody else to clean up. So I'm really enjoying the P90 outlook and how we've formed our policy.
And I think that's one of the things I found too, that there's a lot of people in general, not just companies, that have this, I have this knowledge, I have this, and I'm holding on to it with all my strength, and I'm not sharing it with anybody. To me, it's never been about that. I've been involved in renewable energy for 13 years now with Evolve Green. I'm the owner of Evolve Green. I partner with companies. I've trained many electricians and communities and different groups in order to be able to understand and do themselves. we are an installation group as well, but it isn't our primary focus. We work with a lot of communities straight across Canada as well, and we are a member of the P90 Alliance too. So, which is a strength of many companies coming together with the same. I want to say it's the kind of the same viewpoint, right? We all can win together. Is
Right.
that viewpoint, and the partnerships are a part of that, which are just amazing. So I too agree that partnerships are what really make this work, because when you walk away, you have the confidence that these groups are going to be able to carry on and do yet another project and look after the one that was just done, and maybe even form their own company,
Yep.
which I think is amazing.
Yes. Yes, it definitely gives that you have that latitude to explore all those options, right?
Yeah.
And it's about opportunity. So it doesn't really get any better than that, right?
And it should be about opportunity.
Yeah.
I think the green energy sector is one of the fastest growing sectors ever.
Yeah.
And it's going to overtake pretty much everything else to one degree or another. And when we say green energy, we're not talking about solar panels everywhere. We're talking about things that reduce energy. We're talking about things that remove carbon from the air. We're talking about so many different things in that scope. And there's room for everybody here, because if we all work together as a country, as the world, as a community, all of those things come together, and we're going to create a better place for our children by
Yeah.
doing that. But there is room for absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
So tell me about your travels recently. So what kind of projects have you been working towards?
Well, we've been, oh goodness, with the new incentives that the federal government brought out, we've been talking to several communities, everything from doing their swimming pools to their community centers to their hockey rinks, to going on to First Nations. We've had some really wonderful meetings with some of the council, and just exploring where to go with their infrastructure. So a lot of nations, I mean, are very remote. I mean, power has always been an issue.
Yes.
So if we can provide a sustainable and steady stream of power, I mean, everybody wins. So, I mean, with that comes the community capacity. It comes with even communication, having a reliable internet, having computers in the school that work. So there's so many different benefits with the program. So we just go in, I kind of do the meet and greet, I guess, and I tell them what we're all about, and what we stand for. And I think that's always been missing in the Indigenous portfolio. I mean, I'm Métis, and the one thing that always used to frustrate me is when somebody would come in and say, "We're going to do this for you." I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
I believe,
No.
yeah, I believe in coming in and saying, this is what we can help you with, if you choose to. And we're just going to let you know what we're about. And if it interests you or entices you, please let's sit down and hash this out. I believe it's all about choice. And
Yeah.
so many companies will have an Indigenous policy, I guess, that they just check mark the box. And they think just by check marking the box that it's like a green light on the street, and that's always frustrated me, that policy.
Yeah.
You have a footprint, much like a carbon footprint, but we're not making decisions that are just going to reduce a power bill or build a little bit of infrastructure for a year or two. What we're looking at is designing a program, a system that is going to help the community. It's going to build community capacity, and it's going to be there for a very long time. And we're going to
Absolutely.
invest in the community, and the community is going to benefit from it, from programs for spending their savings or whatever they want to do, creating an infrastructure. And we even have an educational component. So whenever we partner with any Indigenous community, even after we leave, you have to train people to look after
Yeah.
everything. It creates
Absolutely.
employment. So we'll do that. We also have a scholarship. So we will provide, if they have a high school
Oh,
and they have a couple high school students going away to university, college, trades, whatever. If it's a green tinge, we'll do a couple $500 scholarships, because
that's
it's
a
important for
great
them.
idea.
And
Yes, absolutely. Empowering the future. I love that.
yeah,
I
and
love that.
And education has always been shortchanged. There's a lot of agencies that haven't fulfilled their commitments. So it's just us investing in that future programs. So there's a whole bunch of things that we bring to the
I'm
plate.
going to borrow that. We have some local high schools, and I think I'm going to borrow that one
Yeah.
for Evolve, because that is a excellent. Um, it's excellent for just not even just the PR part of this, but I like doing stuff with kids. And I don't know about you, but with this pandemic, I've had trouble reaching out. I used to, go teach like school children, and I love doing that. An afternoon with, some kids, and learning about thermal, and learning about how solar panels and batteries work and all that stuff, sitting in the grass in the schoolyard and everybody's playing with stuff. I love that. So for me, that's actually an awesome point. I think I'm going to go ahead with something like that.
Let me know how it works out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the communities, when you go into the communities, is it different from going from your traditional rural municipality board meeting to meeting with the chiefs? And when I say that, I mean, like, is there a lot of like preparation? Do you go in learning about the community way before you go there? Like, how does that work for you in your head?
Well, for me, I always say during my workshops, when you go to the United States, you just don't blow through the border in your pickup. You stop, you give your passport, they decide where they're looking in. And I think a lot of Canadians forget that there's a reason they're called First Nations and they're First Nation communities. They are a different nation. They have
Right.
different beliefs, different laws. It's their territory. And there has to be a respect because they have earned it. It's theirs.
Mhm.
And a lot of companies will just go in and even with hiring practices, they'll go and say, okay, we have a contract and we have to provide this much employment. And
Oh, yeah.
that's always frustrated me. It's like,
The token people.
yeah. So
It's
it,
such the wrong way to think about things. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah. And so when we want to go in, we want to go in. I want to research the nation. I want to see their history. I want to see what they've got on reserve for capacity, what we can bring to the table, what
Mhm.
we can assist with. It's just
Absolutely.
common sense. And when you show up, it's like going to your grandparents' house. I mean, you're respectful. You want to learn from their knowledge, and
Mhm.
and see how you can make it all work. And yeah, I'm really proud of how we approach this and go in, and we have some fantastic conversations. Sometimes we can move forward, and sometimes you can't. But that's until you have that
Exactly.
conversation, you don't know where you're going to go.
Exactly.
And also having that conversation gives you the knowledge and the wisdom for the next time you go. And yeah,
And
and
I don't know about you, but whenever I've dealt with the communities, also I always feel that it's so important to have that face-to-face conversation too. Um, you know, where you're actually with each other. And that's where with the pandemic, I think it's been really difficult for some of these kind of conversations to happen, because they don't know you, right? And it really is even like getting to know you personally and professionally, because that's a trust thing, in my opinion. And whenever you're doing anything with business, it is a trust thing. And I think that that's one thing with this pandemic that's been very, very difficult for a lot of these types of things to happen. And so I'm glad that we're almost there and we're getting there, and these conversations can now start to happen. So, how did you do through the pandemic? Was it difficult at times because of that?
yeah, I was quite fortunate. I worked quite a bit through the pandemic,
Nice.
and it seems like you have the phone to your ear 24/7. But yeah, I
Yes.
was fortunate. It was really hard for the kids. I mean, we're a very structured family. My son's in university. He's going through for molecular genetics. So
Wow.
being
Nice.
removed from that and having to do it online was very difficult for him. I mean, you miss that interaction. You're going into labs. I mean, he's tried to explain it to me, and I kind of get a glazed look over my face because I don't really understand what he does. But and my other daughter, she's in university as well, and she plays U sport hockey, and missing their teams, having the season taken from them, and trying to learn from a computer. It just doesn't, you need
No.
people need people.
People
And
do need people. That's true. There's a reason for the word community, isn't there?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a thing called, I call it, I've been doing it for years. I call it the 30-30-40 split. And so any community, it doesn't matter where you grow up, you have 30% of the people, and you probably understand what I mean, Lorraine. You have the 30%, they volunteer. Uh, if anything needs to be done for the community, they're the first one in line. They don't ask for their picture taken. They don't want any accolades. They don't want anything that they just volunteer because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Then you have the other 30 that will volunteer and do it, but it is solely for their own purpose and benefit.
Yes.
And I find that in a lot of communities that I've been in. Or my famous one is, you don't know who we are. You don't know our last name, right? Like, our family's been here for generations. It's like, yeah, join the club. So you have that 30. And what I mean by the 30-30-40 is, it's the 40%. They just want to raise their families. They want to have time with their families, have a good job, have some friends, have a barbecue in the backyard, and just be a family and live. It depends on which 30 that 40 follows. If they follow the first 30, you have a thriving, vibrant community. If they follow the second 30, you have a toxic community. So that's why I call it 30-30-40. So
it makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I've been in different communities, and it does have a different feel depending on where you are, and they're all different. And that's not to say, bad, good, whatever. It's just that I know from the renewable standpoint, some are more for it, some are not as for it. Some want to work with a company that has, other members that are potentially from their community as well, right? So it just depends. I've even had people that not want to work with me because I'm female, right? So it's kind of all over the place, right? You're not going to win everything, and that's just the way it goes. But until you have the conversation, how are you going to know if it's going to be that fit for you? And I always look at it too as a fit for me. With my company, I like to feel that this is a good transition for whatever community we're working with as well. Because I have at times pulled back when I felt that it was just not the right fit.
Right.
Or maybe they weren't in the right headspace for what we were going to do. Does that make sense? Like, we need a community that is open to us, like that 70%, right? That's going to follow that more positive outlook. Because if we don't have the uptick, the reality is that nobody's going to understand when we leave what we've done, and then you're just going to create a bad vibe, a bad residual effect, basically, right? That's going to carry for who knows how many generations in that community about the industry as a whole. They won't remember that company, but they will remember that negative impact. I know there was a community out here. I'm not going to name them. They have the largest solar system in Manitoba. And one of the biggest things was the community had a massive power failure. And whoever the company was from Ontario that did this one in Manitoba, I guess never got across to the community that when the power goes out, when the grid fails, that their system is off because they didn't have a battery backup source for the community. And this is possible, yes, but nobody explained it to them. So now they were really upset when they didn't have power. And, people say, well, didn't they know? No, because you can actually have power. That's why they didn't know. And, but that kind of thing creates that kind of a bad negative impact for the whole industry for that solar. Nobody's saying that company, So now is that community now open or closed to renewable energy? I mean, I can't answer that because I haven't met with them, but I'm just saying that I know that was a backlash, that created that residual buzz against our industry, which is unfair, maybe, but understandable if it wasn't really communicated. And that's where if you get the 70% coming into this with uptick. So in other words, you go in with education on what you're doing, what it's going to do for you, and educating the people also on, how to do it, how to look after it, how to do it again. All of those things, they're going to be much more informed than if you just walk in and do it and walk away.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So, but
It,
you
it,
also have the added advantage, they're going to be very protective of their system too.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of a lifeline once it gets up and running, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
there's so many remote communities. I mean, my goodness. I mean, they have winter roads. I think the majority of Canadians don't realize truly how isolated these places are. So
No.
we can bring this just a new power source, be it solar, geothermal, whichever. It's life changing because
Well,
it opens up so
it
much.
is. It is. And we're trying to look at the whole picture here. Look at the youth of today in those communities. And it's almost like having no prospects. People don't get that. They talk about nutrition and they talk about this, they should do this, they should do that. No, no, wait a minute. We need to create hope. We need to create, that's why I love airships, because I know Dr. Barry Prentice, I've worked a lot with him over at Bassey at a Winnipeg, because did you know that airships can carry a whole house? So if you have something that is now not regulated or just to winter roads and small airplanes,
Right.
you have something that could go back and forth. Now you can create whole industries in the
Right.
north, which is jobs, which is opportunity for people to stay in their own communities and thrive. And people talk about food insecurities and these kinds of things, but I'm not always a proponent of that. And there's a reason, because these communities, they have certain ways that they eat. And the only bad thing we've had a negative impact in is bringing like garbage food out there, but without the education behind not eating that kind of garbage, because we're not supposed to eat that kind of garbage food anyways, right? So, the chips and chocolate bars and whatever. But more education on how their culture actually eats. And that comes within the community, right? So that they're healthy and thriving with the types of foods that they should be eating in their natural environment. But creating commerce for the children and hope, getting hope, which all injects also the cash flows inject into the communities. So they're wealthier communities and they're able to do more with that. So for me, airships are a big, good, and solid answer for those remote communities, but also powering them, giving them independence of power, which is also truly amazing. And that is what you are doing, which is so amazing. Have you gone up to some of the remote communities in Saskatchewan?
We have bookings actually starting next week. We've been going up there. We've been having multiple conversations just on the phone so far because I've
Right.
only been with P90 for a few months now. So we're just kind of getting the track work down.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really excited about where we're going to go with this. It's just when you were talking about the communities, I mean, we have some communities where, I mean, they're having suicides, kids as young as 10.
Yeah.
This is
It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking that
and,
a
and
child of 10 years old
right,
doesn't see hope. A
and
10-year-old.
it's unacceptable and it's totally avoidable as long as government actually adheres to what we have agreed to. They've, and that frustrates me. So it's with P90, we've kind of taken that. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to give them the ability to do this. Or sorry, that's not even. We're going to partner with them, and we're going to help them get the opportunities to implement it. Right.
Well, and P90, for those of you who don't know, let's just cover that. It is all about partnerships. In fact, it's many, many companies a part of the P90 Alliance. And we partner, we create business, we create where we go. It's about creating opportunity. It's about creating hope. So it is actually a whole different way of viewing
Yeah.
what we do here. So, and that's what is exciting about P90 and our mandates is just completely different, different tilt to everything. So it's excited to have you on board because you're so knowledgeable and you have so much experience as well in multiple facets, which is really the holisticness of this.
Right. It's, you know, when I was with Family Services, I was really proud. 2 years in a row, we reduced Indigenous kids in care. We were one of the
Wow.
only regions to do so. I mean, other regions were getting close, but we did it consistently, and we were actually making inroads, and we were changing the system. And then the Alberta government at the time disbanded all the boards and went
Wow.
with a completely other format. So my frustration level just grew because we were actually getting traction. We were starting to see results. And my results for myself at that time
Mhm.
was less kids in care.
Yes.
And having, yeah, and just having the services and to have the nation's own infrastructure, because they're the ones that understand. It used to frustrate me with the policy. We come in and they would say, "Oh no, this is what you're going to do, or this is what you need." No, they already know. They're very capable. They understand completely what they need, and
Yeah.
that's where you have to partner and say, "Okay, this is what we're going to partner with, and give you the resources, and help you attain the resources, so you don't need you're self-sustainable."
Yep.
And that's where, that's
The
sustainability.
sky's the limit with what we're trying to achieve here at P90 as well. So we're trying to look at all aspects of infrastructure like clean water and power and storage for independence. So we want them to learn, we want them to understand their systems and create industry out of that. So that's where, and a lot of people like, oh, so what do you get? Well, yeah, we're selling them stuff. Yep. Okay, sure. But what we're selling them is hope. That's what I feel anyways.
Yep.
We're selling hope
Yep.
because we're partnering. We're not there to say, here, take this and we're running away. No, no, this isn't. We're here for the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. And on those lines, there are companies out there that do that,
Yes,
and thankfully they're dwindling every day. So and I think
because
it's
there's a
very,
better way.
yeah. There's and with the P90 group, with just the alliance, I think we've been able to take all those bad experiences. Everybody comes to the table with their own bad experiences, and then they can share it. So when you have a multiple kind of just a cook pot of different ideas and experience, I mean, you're going to come up with a pretty good recipe. And I think that's
Absolutely.
what they've got.
I think so too. I'm really confident moving forward that you are going to be amazing in what you're doing. I know you already are because you're so knowledgeable. I wanted to just take a quick break because we have to talk about some of our sponsors because we do have AETI, and AETI is all about teaching renewables. So it's also about forwarding the future of Canadians. They're out of Calgary, so and I know they have some free webinars coming up, so you guys might want to hop on and check out AETI. I have the links below, and here is their clip. Wow, that's quite a dynamic video that AETI's got going on there. So check out AETIinc.ca about your future in renewables. Welcoming back Jason Sansregret, and we're having a really great conversation about some of the work he's doing with P90 Energy and the different communities he serves. Hey, Jason. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about some of your past experience. How do you take that and transition it in? Like, is this about a way of life for you that you wanted to go forward into something that would help people become independent?
Oh, absolutely. Uh, Years ago, I used to have such a level of frustration on I guess, municipalities, governments deciding on which project would succeed and which wouldn't. And people always got lost in the process. And that, what I mean by that is Indigenous communities. Uh, and there's no reason for it. We have treaties, we have agreements, we have rules of law that we're supposed to be doing. And over the years, it's just been ignored so much. So, I mean, the difference uh, in community capacity in every form is so low. And this gives us the opportunity to not only adhere to those agreements and treaties, but it gives us the ability to invest. Um, it gives us the opportunity to help with everything from healthcare to childcare to just infrastructure on reserve. Whichever nation we go to, it doesn't matter if they're remote, if they're urban, the rural communities, we have something that we can offer and something that we can give. And there's such, what's the proper word to use, I guess? I guess when it comes to the majority of Canadians understanding issues with the Indigenous communities, they're relatively ignorant. And
Yes.
I'm not going to say that Canadians are stupid. It's just that it's something that's never been taught to them. And the way it's been taught has always been geared. I mean, you just have to simply look in the media where we are today. People are saying, well, I had no idea this was going on. But yeah, we did. It's just whether you want to admit it or not. And that's where I find it's
I
to go
know.
forward. You have to come to that realization and realize that if you truly want to be, as we say, oh, Canada's free and it's for everybody, then it really is free and it's for everybody. And you have to and include that. And people grasp with that concept.
Well, and a lot of the communities you're going to are sovereign nations in their own right as well. So, and that brings us back to it's like going to the U.S. It's a different country, basically.
Yes.
And so we call them communities, but in essence, they are like different countries. And one is not like the other either. So all these different nations have different rules, laws that people need to follow within their communities. They have structure, lots of structure, and So I mean, I think Canadians are also a little oblivious to that sometimes too.
You
Um,
know, you go back into the treaties. Let's go back to 1764. Uh, I mean, hundreds of Indigenous groups camped on, at Niagara, and they formed Canada. It was a combination of British law, Indigenous law, and I mean, you can look at any wampum belt, and you can see what it meant to the people. I mean, you've got a picture of two people holding hands, and it's bound in chain. That it doesn't get any better than that. And we're
yeah,
to share. We're supposed to work together, and
yeah,
and that's what it meant. And when you go out into the, if you were to go downtown or something in the one city where I live, people just don't understand that.
no,
And it's having about that realization and that education part, and that's one thing that I've always been doing the last couple of 10 years now. It's my responsibility to educate people on that. And when they educated on it, it's like a light goes off, and they're like, oh, well, we didn't know. Well, now you do.
yeah.
So, and
It's
and
like it's like being offensive without knowing why or that you are
right,
offensive. Yeah.
right. And once they know, when that light comes on, it's now what are you going to do? Now you have a responsibility. And yeah, and it's a long uphill battle, but I think we're winning. So,
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, and I'm glad you're able to go forth. I know for me, working with environmental issues and doing design and installations, to me, I've always looked at it as my mission has been to change my corner of the world. That's what I set out to do, and I think I am doing that. I'm working hard for that. Um, and to me, it means a lot what I do, and so you're able to also do that. Is that the feeling you get as well?
yes, I'm quite happy. Just when a system goes in, and wherever it goes, they get that independence, uh,
Yes.
be it saving, but it's something that they're in charge of. they can determine wherever they want to go. And it doesn't matter if you're in a community with a hockey rink in Red Deer, Alberta, or as soon as it's up and running, you see the savings, you see the energy you're generating. It's, you can see it at any time you want. And it's just cool because it's a green energy product. And I think that's great.
And let's talk about that just for a quick moment too. I really wanted to express P90 is all about having commercial grade renewable energy processes or systems. A lot of times it will be in reference to our solar systems as well as our storage systems. These are Canadian on, the commercial grade is because they stand up to the kind of winds that we saw in Saskatchewan that blew apart 90 solar systems, not ours, 90 systems. Okay. And P90 Energy I think they're still working on some of that, aren't they? Helping those people get their systems back together. And also, we're here. P90 Energy is also about companies that have withstand and have been in the industry, some of them up to 30 years in the industry. So we're a group of companies and we tie into each other. So what you get is all of that expertise, but also all of that security. We're also going to be here in 10 years when, you need help because there's something going on with your system, or you want to expand that system to encompass more of your community. So it has a reliability built into it.
Yeah. Well, we were actually in Stoughton. Stoughton is where P90 has their one shop, and they build and manufacture, and they employ, goodness, I don't even have a clue how many people they would employ. There's welders, there's pipe fitters, there's instrumentation techs. I mean, it's phenomenal what they've achieved there.
Yeah.
And we were looking at their new power grid that they've got, and you've got those big pilings in the ground, and you're looking at at the frame, and it's so huge.
I saw video of that going up. I wish I had uploaded that. That was actually awesome. Pretty amazing. And how fast it happened too.
Yes. And we were there, and there was actually a pretty stiff wind. And so I went up and I put my hand against the pipe, and there was no vibration, right? It's just like, so, being from an agriculture background, I mean, I saw hailstorms come through and windstorms that flattened my crops, and I felt pretty comfortable when I'm looking at that steel. It's not going anywhere. And so now I understand why none of the systems blew down in that massive storm you guys had, because it would take a lot.
Yeah, it would. And it was exciting to see it because it was the first real, we knew what it was built to, but having it go through something like that, it was almost tornado, right? It was hurricane level winds.
Yeah.
And solar on top of these things, it's like a big sail. There's a lot of pressure on those systems, and it's truly, truly amazing how they withheld no problem in those winds. Whereas those lesser systems, they just blew straight apart, basically.
Yeah. And, the crew there at P92, they've got so much experience, the workers with oil field applications, gas, all that stuff.
Yes.
So when you're working with pressure like that, they're the perfect ones to build and manufacture it, right? So.
Well, yeah, because it's oil field ready. Basically, everything they do. It doesn't matter what it is, they tackle it the same way. And a lot of people think we're against oil and gas, and I don't think they actually realize, and renewable energy and oil and gas have always been playing together.
Yeah.
Because they need us. They need help to get power, to power their equipment and all of that stuff. So it's long history with oil and gas and renewable energy. There is no in-house fighting when it comes to our industries. But yet from the outside, you have people saying, yes, we got to squash oil and gas and we got to do all these things. No. We are not changing anything anytime soon. What we are doing is we're making it possible for renewable to start being the heavy lifter.
Yep.
And making processes that already exist greener. And we could take a coal plant with some of the technology that we're working with and make it only 10% emission. 10. It could even be less. But this is what we've tested is 10, 8 to 10. So, you know what? That's green coal.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
So,
It's really amazing when you, even with the solar industry, you're talking about the oil field component. We need welders, we need pipe
yes,
fitters, we need instrumentation techs, we need boom operators to put the same services apply. And
absolutely.
it's, again, it's education, because you have some government saying that, oh, this is bad, we need this, we need that, and if you do this, you're supporting that. It's that constant conflict. They're trying to keep people separated, and I think once we come to an understanding of what we can offer each other, I think it's going to explode.
I think so
And
too.
I look at it as a really good thing. But it's
Yeah.
just, again, to have that conversation.
Well, it's changing people's attitudes. And I think that's the long and the short of it. We have to get to those people that still feel that there's some sort of a conflict between the two, and just say, no, actually, there isn't, and create the education and the question answer that gets people to that same level. So, because we're in the industry, we know.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, the people that are still on the outside, I find in fighting in these different I'm not going to name any, but there's environmental groups that fight against oil and gas, and they don't actually understand, and coal plants and all that stuff, and they don't actually understand the industry,
Yeah.
as a whole.
Yeah.
And I think it's an education piece. That's all that has to happen here, really, because we are naturally, as industries, growing together and growing strong together and becoming more environmentally sound together. Lots of work to be done. Absolutely, I agree. But I think we are on the right path. And with government support like we have in the US and we have in Canada, I think we're getting there faster now than we were even, 6 years ago. But even in the last few months, I feel that it's with the federal funding is really helping with that pace.
Yeah. The like with the agricultural program, especially, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 150 million, and
Yes,
it filled up so fast. I
it
mean,
did.
now farmers that are applying for the program, that I think it's April where they're going to
Yes.
do another
I
spot.
think they're still taking applications though. So farmers, if you're out there and you want to do a system, you need to get that application in for funding in April 2022
Yeah.
when they put more money back into these funds. I agree wholeheartedly, but I always view that as whoever did apply is now going to be that much closer to independence and helping create a lower amount that they've got to pay for on a day-to-day basis. And I think that creates food security, especially with the farmers.
Yeah. What, when we were on the farm, uh, there were sometimes we'd be without power. It's 40 below, 35 below. The wind comes up and then starts to snow, and we're without power for 3, 4 days.
Yep.
And I would have loved back then to have a system where I can just go flip a switch and I've got a battery bank.
I have that on
Yeah.
my house. I don't
Yeah.
have to flip a switch even. It's automatic. I have a little tiny, one of those little Christmas trees that has those little LED kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a small draw. It's a very small draw. I have that connected to the grid here. And that's so as I know if it's gone out or not, because otherwise I wouldn't know. It's
Oh,
on a dedicated circuit so that I know, and
yeah.
it's not powered by my solar off-grid system. And I have grid tie and off-grid and battery backup here. I love it. I want everybody in Canada to have one because you are going to love it too, not being totally and solely reliant on your current electrical grid. Because let's face it, anything that has an infrastructure that large is going to have lots of failures.
Yeah.
We need to make people independent.
I always laughed. We lost power one time for 3 days, and we had about 600 head of steers in the feedlot. And
Oh.
that's a lot of waters to dethaw.
Yes.
and I was like, if we had had this system, that would have saved me so much time and hassle, and almost having a partial stroke. It was just, it's cute. And
It's terrible,
even
yeah.
communities, like if the town loses power, some are have a generator now that might run a thing, but with the P90, with the solar aspect, the batteries, the cogens, they have that ability to never lose power for their big facilities. And I think as it slowly, the education part comes on, those communities are going to realize exactly what they can do.
I asked a group of teenagers that were scoffing at my company about 10 years ago. I asked them, I said, so what do you do if you have no power? And he says, well, we turn on a generator. I said, great. So where do you get gas for the generator when there is no more left in the generator? Oh, we go to our friend's house next door. So this was 10 years ago. Now, of course, most average teenagers know that a solar system and a battery backup could actually provide power because, most of the school structures have changed and they're starting to teach kids about renewable energy. And I think it always starts with our children. But I wanted to use that as this is an actual conversation 10 years ago I had with a group of teenage boys that were scoffing at my company. This is how much we've changed, and I think people know this. I know in our community, however, even our phone systems, the landlines,
Right.
they're run by a generator. Almost nobody in this community knows that that generator has 4 hours of gas, and that once the 4 hours of gas runs out, you don't have a landline, and we are not in cell phone range. We don't have cell, and so we're not that rural. However, we happen to be in this dead zone. So I can appreciate rural communities that don't have cell coverage or basic internet. Everybody thinks that everywhere is internet these days. There's communities that don't have it, communities that don't have cell phones. And these landlines, like I said, if the generator runs out of gas, there you go. You don't have landlines either. Communication is really difficult. And when I say this, I say 200 kilometers past Winnipeg. Okay, so past Pickle Lake in Manitoba is all remote communities.
Right.
I'm not saying they all don't have internet or they all don't have. Some of them do.
Yeah.
But when you can think that it took a lot to get those infrastructure pieces in place, and they don't have a backup. So now, understand that having these types of systems in there would give them the independence that they need, so that if they didn't have their generator generated grid, because we have actually communities out here run by big generators, basically from Manitoba Hydro, diesel generators, and you know what, it gives them that independence. And also in some of those communities, I just wanted to raise this quickly. Diesel generated communities that have diesel generated grids, they're actually very sick communities. A lot of people don't realize what kind of fumes are generated when you have diesel generation only. And it's bled into the ground, and it makes the earth sick, and it makes people sick and children sick. So it is really important to clean up these communities and help them get into a more natural state too for their own health.
Yeah. Oh, very important.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I just wanted to say, Jason, we have run over time, but you were so interesting and wonderful to talk to. And had so many great points to pull out. I just honestly wanted to keep going for a little bit. So we are 8 minutes over, but I really wanted to thank you for being on our show.
Thank you very much for having me.
And
I'm sorry it took so long, but I enjoyed today. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to have you back on again in a few months' time, because I want to see, like, maybe we can walk through a project or something like that, and see where you're at in a couple of months as well. Hopefully it doesn't take, I don't know, was it almost a month? We've been trying to do this for a while now, I think.
Wow. Yeah. So
You're a busy guy. That's okay. No, that's all right. Jason Sansregret from P90 Energy. If you want to contact him, you can simply give him a call, or you can go on and just go to p90alliance.com, and you can get into communication through there for Jason. Again, thank you. And we'll see you again soon. I really enjoyed this.
that sounds good, Lorena. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that's it for episode 22. I really enjoyed that conversation with Jason, and I really hope we're going to have him back. So I'm going to actually close the show with our other sponsor, Evolve Green, and we have a new video for that one, and we'll see you with episode 23. Hello, my name is Loretta Mitchell, owner of Evolve Green. And here at Evolve Green, we take the environment very seriously. We have a 10 kilowatt solar system that offsets our main facility by 75%, as well as maintaining natural prairie on our grounds. Our mission, creating renewables that work for you. I started Evolve Green in 2008 with a passion for the environment and wanting to change my corner of the world. And that remains the same today. Through design, consult, and installation, we provide renewable energy systems and storage integration. Here at Evolve Green, we help Canadians rethink power and storage to help fortify our children's future. To learn more, visit evolvegreen.ca.